All right, welcome back. Radical changes as, of course, Gen Z backlash there. They say Gen Z backlash as radical changes to IBC expected to follow soon. And they're taking none of it as far as dialogue is concerned. Just going by the sentiments of the Gen Z there, we have Cornelius Rono. The dialogue is between two individuals, William Ruto and Raila Odinga, who refuse to be controlled by selfish politicians who only value their stomachs. Gen Z and millennials are taking the bull by the horns. Duke Mutambo says political class regrouping to secure their selfish interests through an opposition handshake. But what we want to tell Raila Odinga is that those harmless youths didn't die on the streets for senseless dialogues. Raila, who are we? You're not our leader. G-Man, Hukijana. At Hukijana, he says, we thank Raila for everything he has done for this nation, but this is no longer his battle. Mzee, atulie ama pia yeye, tumpe salamu mbili tatu. Hapa na pale is being reminded. Raila Odinga Jr., everybody is an individual. Please, even people with the same exact names. That is what is the current state of play as far as the national dialogue is concerned and the conversation thereof. And a probing question there, a Ruto Raila government handshake 2, President William Ruto and ODM Chief Raila Odinga may be planning to form a government of national unity as the head of state seeks a way out of the current youth-led protest. Meanwhile, the Azimio coalition faces implosion, and here is an implosion. Azimio split as Ruto hint at unity government. Not us, oppositions Karua, Kioni, Eugene, Tamu, Trap insist they're not voting. Raila Odinga's ODM considering working with Kenya Kwanza in a new coalition, and this was how it went down yesterday after he assented to the bill. And Ruto Raila told off Youth Voice, there can't be a dialogue with Gen Z without justice or accountability. The government must take full responsibility of deaths of the young protesters. The president must acknowledge that his administration killed innocent demonstrators. And this story is on page 2. Kindiki distances the state from illegal arrests, excesses, it says. And we know that dozens of activists say they were snatched from their homes or off the streets by hooded armed men. And also, pathologists have confirmed, but it says here, pathologist confirms missing J.K. Watt student, that is Denzel, died of drowning. Denzel Omondi, a third-year quantity survey student at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, who went missing at the onset of anti-finance bill protest in Nairobi, died by drowning. A post-mortem report revealed yesterday. A pathology conducted at Thika Bay's General Cargo Funeral Home shows the 23-year-old had bruises at the back of his head and on his legs. While the pathologist did not address journalists over the matter, Amnesty International Kenya Executive Director, that is Rungu Houghton, said Omondi's body was discovered on July the 6th, floating in deserted Mashinani quarries in Juja, a move that raised suspicion over his cause of death. On June 25th, Omondi was protesting at the National Assembly and would be later seen at the university the following day, only to disappear on June the 27th. Amin said, where is this? Occupy Parliament. Omondi, the firstborn in his family, is heard saying in a video of him within the vicinity of the August House, which has since flickered on social media. James Otieno, the deceased father, said he spoke to his son last on June 27th in the morning, but his phone went off later in the day. You can read the rest of the story there. So this is what is upsetting the Gen Zs.
Yeah.
And yet now we're calling for a dialogue. So they're saying we can have none of us unless these injustices are addressed.
Well, you know, the Gen Z could occupy Vigilance House and occupy the NIS and occupy the security institutions of this country, and they will be shot at and there will be a bloodbath, and that will precipitate a revolution in this country. We do not want that. We do not want that at all. We want a transformation of this country based on the 3 basic concepts that the Gen Z have put forward. We believe, and I believe firmly, Debal, that the president has just missed the boat. He has consistently missed the boat. He has misunderstood what is happening in this country. And I've come to believe that he just doesn't want to deal with what is happening in this country, Debal. It is not a matter of him ignoring it. He knows what is happening. He knows that there is a transformation that is coming. It is not a coup, Debal. There is no coup in this country. A coup is staged by soldiers. There is no such thing as a civilian coup d'etat. The proper word in French is a coup d'etat, and most of it is associated with the military. And there is a coup de grace, which is the finishing blow. There's a difference between these two. This is a coup de grace, it is a coup with a finishing blow that has no other avenue. And all we need to do is manage this transition so that we can have a democratic dispensation as to this uprising against the status quo. Debal, for 60 years, 60 years, generations have tried to change this country. And it has fallen upon this generation. It has fallen upon them. My generation, Debal, is the one that brought in the men sitting here, who brought the constitution of this country. These kids have made the constitution alive. They're living the document. Debal, without this constitution, and there was a one-party state in this country, Debal, there would have been a disaster in this country. It would have been a failed state. I want to address one particularly pernicious idea by politicians in this country, Debal. I argued here for a long time, and you were here, and my colleagues too argued, that all the way from West Africa through the Sahel, that there was a youth transformation that was coming from North Africa all the way down to East Africa. People thought that Kenya was immune from the laws of history. And I said that here repeatedly. It passed Sudan, it turned into a civil war, and it has come into Kenya, and it's going to go all the way south to Zimbabwe and all these other countries. It's coming. South Africa, Debal, the African National Congress, the consciousness of South Africa, nearly lost the election. Do you know who was giving the vote to the pro-apartheid people? People were sick and tired of them not bringing their promises, the promises that they said they were going to bring: jobs, healthcare, and housing. Debal, if you listen to the Gen Z, the Gen Zs are really, their slogan is, they're asking for the political economy of Kenya to work. They want the healthcare system to work. They want corruption to end, Debal. They want to have pavements that work, that they can walk on the streets. They don't want to flush their toilet and it's not working, the sewage is not working. They don't want to drink the water and get TB out of it or some diarrhea. They want a working nation because they see their compatriots around the world on Twitter, social space. They see them on the movies. There's a special movie channel on the telephones that my kids have. Debal, that's what they want, a working nation. What is the political class of this country doing, Debal? We're losing 2 to 5 billion shillings. Before 5 o'clock today, Kenya would have lost an average of 2 to 3 billion Kenya shillings in corruption. Debal, the political elite are going to the Wembley Stadium and taking pictures of themselves at the executive room. We're with Asanali, and they're taking selfies. These children who have degrees in IT and science don't have jobs. They can't afford to take their girlfriends out for a decent lunch. They cannot afford to go to the movies. Debal, they are at the cul-de-sac, at the end of a historical moment in this country. The political class doesn't know what to do. They are playing the fiddle while this country might burn.
Mm-hmm. Right. Professor Peter Kagwenja.
Yes, I think we need to say that the Gen Z are a moral army crusading for what essentially and inherently is Kenyan.
Yeah.
They are not interested with things that divide us. For 60 years, we've divided on petty lines, very petty. Parties, tribes, leaders. That's why they are declaring themselves as partyless, leaderless, and tribeless. Because it is possible to envision a Kenya that does not have this. And therefore, when you look at the so-called power sharing on whatever, it is ethnic balancing. Rather than balancing the values of Kenya.
Yes.
You're balancing tribes here. You're not even balancing talents. You're not balancing merits.
Mm-hmm.
You are balancing heads of tribes. And this is what has come to be so-called the face of Kenya. That we have set up institutions like National Cohesion and whatever Integration Commission. It's not just about toothless. It is having the wrong questions. That how many people are in which organization and so on.
Belonging to this
and belonging to this and
tribe,
that other tribes. Like we are different. We are talking about the difference between horses, donkeys, and zebras.
Terrible.
I mean, our mind is warped. This is what the young people are telling us. That we split hairs every morning about these things. So what is it that they want? They want a complete change. But what do our leadership want and the opposition? Our leadership and opposition are literally holding the long end of the stick. When the young people are talking about let's change so that we can have jobs, we can have dignity, we can have respect, and we all can be equal by virtue of accessing amenities and privileges that are offered by our great nation. These are talking about let's have a conversation. Let's have a dialogue. Dialogue is not an end to a means. It's a dialogue between the robber and the robbed. Obviously, the robber will have to rob the victim. I mean, so there can never be that kind of a dialogue. And finally, we have the response. The public response is let's have dialogue. The real response is repression of the young people. And why I say this is because these are our children. They are the millennials, particularly the late millennials, and the Gen Zs are literally my children. And therefore, when you move out to impose what was one described as the informal repression, this is where the state replaces but ensures that it maintains a distance of deniability. That you can deny that you're not directly involved in human rights. That is what gave rise to ethnic clashes in this country. We know who killed, we know who was orchestrating it, but to date we cannot put our finger. We cannot put a finger on them because they maintain that distance of culpability. Unfortunately, for this generation, there is IT. Therefore, we can prove who did it. Now, the point here is we have a very good chance as a country, not to dialogue with these kids, but to do what we need to do to make Kenya great by not engaging in unnecessary travels, not engaging in this flamboyant corruption and extravagant use of our resources, by balancing our debts with our income, what the president is calling living within our means. I wish we can practically, put that into practice. We live within our means. And as a country, we are blessed by God. Our geography alone is an income. Just our location is an income.
Strategic location.
It is so strategically located that the Sudanese, the Congolese, the Ethiopians, the Somalis, we will have to come to Nairobi. And that makes an income. Geographically. Two, many parts of our countries are well watered and so on and so forth. Even those that are not well watered are richest in animal and other products. So we just need a government with rich values,
and leadership,
rich leadership, and basically a patriotic thinking or mindset.
But now that we're in a conundrum, that's if the Gen Z, they're refusing dialogue, what is the way forward? So that is, I think, what we need to, the Gordian knot that needs to be untangled, the elephant in the room. Now that we can see the posturing, the government is posturing for a dialogue, Gen Z is saying, no, we don't want any dialogue. What we are actually gagging for right now is to see actions. There is no room for dialogue. So what is the way forward?
Wouldn't say that Gen Z completely don't want dialogue. I think Gen Z feel like we're not exactly hearing what they are saying. And one of the things they're demanding is accountability, number one.
But they don't know. Before you even launch there, sorry for butting in, we had, should I say, I can call it a conversation with the president on X, and where they felt also that particular space was sabotaged because they think some of the representatives there were not really representing the position of a Gen Z.
Yeah.
And this is where they feel that it will be taken over by the political class at the end of the day, as has been expressed also by some quarter of the opposition, right, led by Martha Karua, that now if we continue with the dialogue process, now we'll actually take this thing from the hands of a Gen Z and then return it to the political class. I think if you're saying we're not hearing, that is what we can hear, according to maybe my perception. But we can hear differently. You know, people hear different frequencies of the same music.
I think what we're hearing, I guess, in terms of the ruling class and the ones who've been around is dialogue. But I think what they're asking, number one, in the wake of what happened, even as we move in holding people who destroyed property, to account, I think they're very keen to see accountability with regard to the innocent loss of lives, including some people, of course, who were sniped out of their lives, others, as we have seen, who disappeared in mysterious circumstances that are suspicious. And if this question is not answered, and if justice is not addressed, then dialogue is going to be, extremely challenging. So if there is no move towards demonstrating accountability, I think it's going to be very difficult to even talk about dialogue. Number two, part of what pushed them is the tone, deaf attitude that we've actually had when it comes to, for instance, corruption. They have not seen any measures taken in ensuring that all these people who are right now enjoying, ungodly largesse, that they've amassed in a few years, and action is taken.
Yeah.
And
arrested.
so the question is going to be, now, what exactly are we going to talk about? Because they do not know what the content of that is going to be. Three, they have demanded a degree of rationalization of the government in ways that is going to demonstrate, competence, but also be able to be leaner. They think we are too big, which is actually true. We're one of the largest governments on the face of the globe, considering both national as well as county level. And must I add, counties are even more corrupt than probably any other institutions.
They have helicopters.
Exactly.
They have helicopters.
And they see this. There is a girl who called in from Baringo during that, and she made a very, very powerful case. She graduated in 2016, and her story was extremely emotional and very powerful. And the way she's been unable to get any job whatsoever, and even when she goes for interview, she's required, if she passes, for instance, they ask you to put 100,000, or someone asks, well, now that you've gotten, you're going to have to sleep with me before you get the job. It was very, very powerful. And this is what a lot of young people are actually facing, in this country, and they don't know what to do about it. And perhaps, finally, they want to see a move with regard to talking about addressing those specific items that they have mentioned. And so the rejection or the declining to sign the bill was one step. But we think it's important to understand that the finance bill was kind of a proximate factor, was a trigger. There are underlying issues that they brought on board. Some will require immediate action, others are going to require frameworks that can be able to address them down the line because, the nature of the demands, that have been made. And so I think as a country, when we start intentionally moving in that direction, which is going to require a lot of courage from leaders who are in power, and I mean those who are in government, those who are in the position, those who are the clergy, because they're also extremely dissatisfied with the role, especially of the church and what it has done, that failing to live up to its expectations of the conscience of the public, and most of the time being in bed with politicians across the political spectrum. There has to be a move to demonstrate to them. Now, at the end of the day, Certain compromises, of course, have to be made. Certain programs have to be able to be put in place. But are we in a place where we can be able to provide that? Do we now have the courage? Have we amassed it
To act.
to act? There were two speeches that were made, I think, last week by Senator Onyonka and Kajwang. Those speeches have been replayed by parliaments across Africa and the global south in terms of admitting the inadequacies of our own governance as leaders, those in parliament as well as those in the opposition and in government. You watch the debates in Ghanaian parliament, Nigerian parliament, elsewhere even the Caribbean, they're actually making reference to those speeches that were made. So whether that was, you know,
And Crystal Asige as well.
Is something else. Now, something also outrageous, I think that, you know, perhaps also Gen Z have seized. One of our senators, Robbie Sender, admitted that he had, you know, 377 worth of points on expressway. You know, 377,000. So you can imagine.
On ETC. Yes.
Yes, on
It's really a
ETC.
joke.
On ETC.
Yeah, you know, I was just trying to
don't
do the
know.
calculation myself of
It's a
the
joke.
three.
No,
yeah.
I drove this morning. This
Yes.
is a fact. I didn't notice it until my driver noticed it. One government car in front of me, and I wish I got the number plate. He has in that ETC 780,000.
780,000?
this morning.
It's a symbol. It's a symbol of what's wrong with our country.
This is what we saw.
780,000?
Yes, I am here behind the person at six. I mean, is it as we were coming here,
Yeah,
five something. My car is just immediate. So the barrier goes up, and of course, what you see is the numbers. I had just topped up mine with a few thousand.
Yeah.
And I am looking at this figure. I didn't see it immediately. Is the driver said, "What?"
It's shocking.
The driver was shocked. Then I looked at it, and of course, it had disappeared.
Yeah.
Right.
It's amazing.
So the question is,
700
yes.
over 700,000.
And so, just to conclude, our rhetoric should match our reality and practice. As long as they're not in sync and there's a contradiction to that, it's going to be extremely difficult to convince not just young people, because this movement, deep down inside, is also being supported by a lot of Kenyans who've been extremely frustrated
The whole nation.
with the manner in which
Yeah.
the
Indeed.
country has been governed
You know, I
for
was-
much of the last few decades.
Yeah, indeed. I was just also before we come to you, Ken Obongi, just looking in the daily as well, if you may flip on page 2 of the Standard, that still, when there's this angst, we have Cabinet Secretary Murkomen, who goes on a show,
You saw that?
online show, to talk about the OP and continue to just as in
Justify.
raise the middle finger.
Yes.
You know, to Kenyans. You know, Kenyans were yesterday stunned. It says here, when Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen revealed some of the expensive item he owns, a watch 900,000, a belt worth
outrageous.
40,000, and 50,000 shoes valued at 770,000 and 80,000, and his ties cost him just small. He says something small, one at 20,000. Perhaps feeling that he has said too much on the social media show, Murkomen tried to water it down, saying he only needs one belt in 2 years, and that it can be worn on either side to give the impression of two belts. Well, I own such a belt that you can turn it, and I bought it from Masai, I think at 500 shillings. Yeah. But still, for me, in the past, he has been pictured wearing Rolex worth than 3 million shillings, and another classic fusion ceramic king gold watch currently worth 1.3 million, using a pen said to cost 150,000 shillings, and was also spotted in Gucci shoes worth 131,000 shillings. So for me, I was in light of what we're going through as a country, why would you appear on this show to actually showcase the opulence, decadence, or profligacy that we can see in government?
That is anyway. 3 quick ones. One is what you've just said is a very clear manifestation that we are a country in denial. Our children are pointing out the things you are reading out, and we are saying this is just a belt. It's just a watch. But let's not make any mistake, friends, and those who are listening. Africa is facing a youth uprising. That's a reality. We love our leaders. So sometimes somebody thinks when we say things, we are against the president, we are against the prime minister, we are against the deputy president, we are against Honorable Kalonzo. No, we are just pointing out things the way they are. Africa is undergoing a youth uprising. And this is not confined to our own country, Kenya. See what happened in Gambia the other day. The youth took over parliament, actually copying from us here. They are resisting the increasing of salaries of judges and the members of parliament. In our neighbor here in Uganda, our great old statesman,
Mugabe
is splitting. I mean, is spitting fire. But the youth of the great country of Uganda are very uncomfortable.
Very.
Across, what at some point has been touted as the fastest growing country in Africa and Rwanda. The youth are unhappy. So go anywhere in the world of Africa, you will see that. So number two, let's just do just a little bit of situational analysis of how we have handled a phenomena like this before. If you start earlier on, I gave this narrative from how we have come from 63 to date. Every time we have a crisis like this, every time we are at a momentous, a critical juncture when we need to do something that will transform us completely, we come together and postpone the problem. You get that? We come together when we fight or clash, and we have a few people actually losing their lives. We say, no, we don't want to rock the boat. No, come, we talk. And then we treat cancer using Panadol, so to speak. And it seems to me that that is what we are headed to if we go the way our leaders are saying. Hash was talking earlier about a working nation. What we want to create and what we have is actually a political nation, where the people who have a say and the people who have a greater chunk of what we loosely call the national cake are those who have a bit of positions here and there. Finally, you ask the question, what is the way forward? I like what Hassan was saying, that we need to think in terms of immediate, medium-term, and long-term solutions to the problems that our children are raising. I mean, I would think of a situation like this. We have lost lives in the past 3 weeks. If we were a caring country, and I'm not isolating our leaders in any way, but if we were, Kenneth Ombonge included, this should be a serious mourning period.
Absolutely.
Our flags
should have been half-mast. There should be a yes.
We have one life is far too many to lose. This could be a morning session, not a session to come and say we want to talk. We dialogue. Let's give those families who have lost their loved ones at least some level of respect, at least some level of recognition, and say, guys, we have gone wrong. Killing somebody's son, killing somebody's daughter. I'm a father. And the pain, Diba, I'm sure you're a father. If you're a father, you know what we are talking about.
Yes.
So if we stood up in that facade of KICC, which is the simple nation, as I said yesterday, and say, guys, let's stop for a while.
Take a break.
Let's take a break. Let's mourn the lives that we have lost for the next 1 week. And then after that, what we need to embark on is a program that will transform our society as number one and dignify our people. Let me just give a small example of how we have lost it and let down our youth. Deepal, all my life I've worked in academia, in the education sector. And I have seen our situation in our academic institutions, from universities to colleges to schools, actually decline by the day. I was a student at the University of Nairobi in the late 80s and the early 90s in my undergraduate. I came from an economically challenged background, son of a peasant from southwestern Kenya. But my life in the University of Nairobi gave me some level of dignity.
Correct.
To stand shoulder by shoulder with children from extremely rich families. And I say, here I am. You know, I had access to good food. I had access to good accommodation. I had access to a small allowance that could enable me to go to Bespoke in Ruturi Avenue and buy something that will make me stand out if I stood with children of the rich. I remember I was in class with Parangitunyi's son, Kennedy. And we would stand shoulder by shoulder, and we were very good friends. And nobody could see the difference that I'm a son of a peasant. And we have actually deprived our children of their dignity. We say we have more than 37 public universities, yes, but what is the quality?
The quality is terrible.
Capitation that is going there has actually made, for example, Deepal, you're not very far from where the University of Nairobi is. And I've not been given permission by my seniors to say this. But the thing is, go to our hostels in the university.
It's terrible.
And see where our children are living.
It's terrible.
Simple things like those
It needs to be fixed.
need to be fixed. Give our children
Thank you.
dignity that when they walk out of the corridors of the University of Nairobi,
Yeah.
they can face their colleagues from Harvard.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
And they have access. Just a few moments ago, the president met students and lecturers from Harvard. You know, and I thought, and I tweeted about it. I thought, if I were the president, I would not just meet students and lecturers from Harvard. I will ask them to come with students and lecturers from the School of Business, University of Nairobi, School of Business, Strathmore. Meet your colleagues, come, let's share about the problems of the world.
Can I just add to that?
So let's restore first the dignity of our children,
And the working
instead
country.
of making them to go and sleep outside the Ministry of Health headquarters. Let's just post those interns, over 1,000 of them, who finished. We still need doctors. It takes very long to train a doctor.
Well, thank you.
Just a small point, if you don't mind, about.
Please.
See, I think what we are all saying is very simple. We have reached the end. One of the most basic responses that should have happened immediately after this uprising was the resignation of the security chiefs in this country. That was number one, Debal. The cabinet needs to be dissolved, Debal. This cabinet needs to be dissolved. The president admitted that he was not listening, and he's trying to listen. But Demal, he has no emotional intelligence. He has no empathy. He should have been at the burials of those young people who had died. Debal, he is getting, not only is he getting bad advice across, he's not getting bad advice. He doesn't get it. And Debal, a politician, has to understand that the times have changed, and they have to change with it. Our country, as my learned teacher and the writer said, is a great country, Debal. And what these young people are doing for us, Debal, is at the same level as the Mau Mau Freedom and Land Party that fought for the independence of this country. We are witnessing the third liberation of our country. We are witnessing it, Debal. And what is the response of our political class? Twende tuite Wajaluo, Wakikuyu, Wakamba, Wasomali, na tukae pamoja na tutengeneze serikali ya ukabila tena. Debal, these children don't want that. My kids called me and told me, if you don't participate, Hassan is a witness that I was in the demonstration. If you don't participate in that demonstration, we're not going to talk to you again. They ordered me to go, and I went to the ball, and I was tear gassed, I was shot at, and I didn't think that I had to do this again because I did it during the times that we were being put in police stations and in jails in this country. The ball, the president needs to completely break with the past. He needs to break with these politicians. He needs to break with everything, and he needs to start understanding that we are at the mountaintop, and there is a new dream in this country. And we might not get there with these children who we are given birth to paraphrase Martin Luther King. But we have seen what is coming.
We've seen what is coming. And speaking to what I think the producers put on air there, it's time we exchanged seats. And this is the shift that is coming completely on the political scene. I wanted just to raise the question of, especially on security. And we've seen the Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Interior, on an interview there, a lot of obfuscation that was coming from him, very defensive, combative, and saying that, he's defending the state from illegal arrests and excesses. Then we have a reason to worry if we look at what we have in the dailies there, where they're saying dozens of activists say they were snatched from their homes. Now your home is not even secure, or off the streets by hooded men, armed men. How come the government has not raised concern about these hooded men who are around here snatching people? We see some of them who are dumped in the quarry. Like now, I was just raising this issue of Denzel Omondi, the student, right, who was just nabbed in the presence of the university. He was one of the people that was seen in Parliament, was taking a selfie and saying, "Here I am," and now he drowned in a quarry. And I'm just wondering, you, a person of intellectual of his intellectual provenance, will wake up one morning and being directed to a quarry to swim, for that particular matter, and drown. Do you find that this issue of security has not been addressed? So we want to know, who are these hooded men?
Let's put it this way. When the Gen Z came up, within the government, there were shocks because I thought they had dealt with the opposition and it was finished. So the Finance Bill 2024 was simply a kind of business as usual, getting it over. Because Raila Odinga had acquiesced to the idea that he would go to the African Union and he keep quiet. The people around him, could not talk, and therefore that was gone. So when the Gen Z came, it was a shocker, and we know our states. We have inherited them from colonialism, and colonialism was not a democratizing process. It was an authoritarian process. And we have carried on these tactics and strategies of colonial oppression. And the only thing you try to do is, if they are going to affect your politics in terms of your standing, and therefore you sugarcoat them by doing some things, sending certain people who don't belong to the government. And you have seen so many names popping up from time to time about people who are pretenders to the throne, that I'm a police officer, I'm this, yet they are not. So in this particular case, the second, third day, by the time the kids were going to Parliament, I think it was very clear that there was going to be bloodbath. It was very clear. And because we live in this digital age, and we are scrolling through the digital platforms, we began to see something we saw in the 1990s, which was meant to kind of nip the multi-party democracy in the bud, which is creating jeshis, Jeshi la Mzee, Chinkorolo among the Kisii, Amachuma, and here in Mount Kenya region, empowering the Mongeki and the Kendamoyorus and other thugs. Now, the whole idea was to create a pandemonium, an environment of insecurity, and the government take itself as a victim. So the government is a victim of what it has created. This was what we witnessed in the 90s. And if you read Article 19, the article Informal Repression, you read the Kenya Human Rights Commission's report, Killing the Vote, or you read the Human Rights Watch report, which is displacing all other, the displaced in Naivasha. You are basically...
The IDPs.
Yes. And
internally displaced persons.
Internally displaced persons. Or you read the same Human Rights Watch report of 1993 about the divide and rule, state-sponsored violence in Kenya. These are things that you are going to see that happened on the 25th of June after the parliamentary invasion. But this one has an added sophistication that criminals, either ex-military people who were criminals, people from security guards who have been dismissed because of abuse of the office or the instruments of power they have, whether it's guns or clubs, were basically mobilized. And there was one who was literally shooting.
He was kneeling down and shooting at these kids.
Yes, was kneeling down in a very, very well-trained military style, shooting the enemy. And there were many. And we found during the ethnic crashes of 2007, 2008, we were centrally involved in terms of, defending ourselves, that the ex-retired officers, police officers, military officers would be used. We are saying we have reached a level where you cannot stop this movement. The violence cannot. Two, in the digital age, you cannot deny. So our friends in interior and elsewhere, please know that these are our children, and they are saying we change. They don't mean harm. They are coming from our houses. This is not Al-Shabaab. We have said this before. And there's no way we can succeed in curling them with Al-Shabaab. You have heard what Raila Odinga Jr. has said, that we may share a name exactly, but we are not the same.
Not the same.
I mean, listen to that poignant statement by the Junior. Junior is saying, yes, I'm Raila Odinga, but I'm not the Raila Odinga who is speaking KICC. Listen to our boys, listen to our children, and what are they saying? We stay to the spirit of our constitution. And what does our constitution say? We have a lean cabinet of 22 members plus 4, who is the president, the deputy president, the attorney general, and the secretary to the cabinet. And that gives us a cabinet of 26 people. Stay within that, and also let them not be extravagant. We'll keep to our budget. 2, pair them up with the equal number of PSs. Pair them up. So we have at least 30 PSs. Today we have double the number.
Yeah, because of the state departments that are there.
Because you
the creation of state
then
departments.
The cabinet, the constitution does not allow any other office created below that.
Below that.
So the so-called CAS is simply an invention of Uhuru Kenyatta's government to kind of reward political friends with who may have lost elections. It's a gimmick. They are also saying that we reduce our positions in government at least by 50%, and President Ruto has basically spelled some of the areas which need to be reduced. But when you get reports from Treasury, where President Ruto talked about 50%, Treasury is coming with the 20%. So the government is speaking from both sides of the mouth. 50 for the president, which was rounded and people were happy with, and then 20 from this. Right. And then they print a list of the same. So in short, what we are saying is simply we need to have a lean and focused government. Let me say this. The focus should be on the 3 things that our fathers left behind and said we should do. And when you see the demonstrations and the focus of demonstrations, it is on the 3 enemies of our people: ignorance, poverty, and disease. For ignorance, key is education. For disease, key is health. And for poverty, key is job creation. That is the agenda of the government. Anything else is extravagant.
All right, thank you. Haneje, on the issue of security, the disappearances, the excesses that we can see from government, and the starting now from the CS Interior regarding these excesses and the hooded men as well. Who are they?
Whether they're hooded or unhooded, they're phenomenal.
Can we unhood?
Yes.
Can you unhood them?
The phenomena of extrajudicial killings and forced disappearances. One thing we have learned, especially at the height of our fight against extremism, is the more people we killed and forced to disappear, the more extremism we experience in terms of swelling recruits the ranks of Al-Shabaab, because more and more of our young boys and girls actually crossed over as a result of those kind of actions. And so at the height of our extrajudicial actions, especially in our fight against terrorism, we created even a bigger monster. And with a shift in policy, we've been very successful as actually a country in lowering the threat of terror as well as extremism in this country. And one thing that is always very apparent in a country, these kind of actions, whether they're coming from official sources, they tend to create an environment of fear. Now, there is nothing as dangerous as when people become so fearful that their activities and actions go underground. Because once they start responding, then it becomes a total war. They will no longer be according the kind of legitimacy of trust to the leadership or government, and so they're going to confront in a way that's probably going to be worse than what we actually witnessed on June 25th. And so I think these are questions that we need to be very careful about, and we need to investigate them to ensure they do not continue.
Thank you.
Yes, there is need to be able to hold people to account.
Right.
But we need to be very careful in the way we go about it.
It's ticking up to 8 o'clock. Could we take a short break? Then we circle back with you. Or we can just actually complete this particular topic. When we come back, we turn the leave to international news.
Turn the leave to international.
Yes.
I mean,
so you'll be brief.
First, I'll be very brief. One is on a light note. It seems like the biblical adage that there is nothing new in this world.
There's nothing new under the sun.
Under the sun seems to be very true in our case here. In the 90s, Honorable Raila Odinga differed with his father very sharply. You remember when we were deciding how to choose a presidential candidate for Ford. Raila supported direct vote. Odinga Senior supported delegates, and they differed. And there was a headline to that effect. Very recently, Double M, Miguna talked about pulling back the mask. Now we are saying let's unhood the hooded, the same lines. That's on a light note. Now, Professor Crawford Young and Mutsara wrote a paper entitled The AK-47 as a Change Agent, published in African Affairs, Professor Kawancha. Part of what he deals with in the paper is actually the emergence of militia groups and the informal agents in a number of African countries. He was focusing more on the Karamoja. And he says the way African governments have reacted to some of these groups when they cannot deal with them is to co-opt them into the system and use them for doing bad things. Could it be that that is what we are seeing in the country? And Professor Kindiki is a great guy. He's a colleague.
Very disappointed.
He must be in his own subconscious a little bit disappointed because in this situation, he's very conflicted.
Very.
I'm informed that he used to teach human rights.
Yes.
In the university, and one of one of his greatest students now is the chair lady of the Law Society, of Kenya. I sympathize with the situation of Prof. As a fellow academic. The point is that he needs to find a way of bringing out these overzealous characters who are overdoing it in defending what they think is the state.
Yep.
And sometimes, if history is anything to go by, it's very possible that some of the top people in government don't know exactly who these characters are, but the characters are taking advantage of the opportunity so that tomorrow they tell the president, you know, we defended you. So throw something on our side. I mean, I won't be totally surprised, but what they are doing, they make the government not look very good.
Thank you.
They distract the attention from what the president is trying to do.
Thank you.
To remedy the situation.
All right, thank you, thank you. Dr. Ken Obongi, we take a short break on that particular note. When we circle back, of course, we shall be